To speak on the subject of a lady broke a wrist here the other day falling backwards.
Yeah, well, it looks like we tried quite doing
Have fun, mate. Single parent catastrophe, and that's what it is. It's a catastrophe. It's made up of these new immoral value systems that have worked their way into what would be described as covert Sodom and Gomorrah society now. People aren't going to admit it, but that's what we're dealing with. Um, people say they have the values, but then when it all comes down to it, they're very few and far between. Especially when it comes to resolve, you'll find that people are single for a reason. I'm single for a reason. My last 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 relationships. It's not a good record, is it? 5 relationships, one of which was a marriage. I forfeited due to characteristical behaviour that was less than acceptable, and this isn't something that I'm proud of, but it's about self-preservation as well. There's no point being in a relationship that's working against you. What you'll find is one of the ones I found pretty interesting and devastating, mentally devastating at the same time, was listening to a woman who was in what was supposed to have been a marriage, but for different very bizarre circumstances. After the ceremony, the marriage never officially went through. But I don't want to go into that out of respect for the person in case they listen to this. But that man never had a chance, did he? And before they even started, there was conflict. They managed to stay together for 20 years. I don't know the ins and outs of that, but I do know that it was substance fueled. Everybody had their substance that they liked, and that seemed to have been what the family circled around, the substances. And this is going to have very serious detrimental effects long term. But it seems that a lot of these women, if the bloke will stay, whether he be abusive or not, will carry on. I think a lot of them like a certain amount of drama. That particular woman, son got involved in our relationship and started to fret for his mother's attention, covert emotional incest. And I just got to the point where I thought that, you know, she wasn't doing anything about it. In fact, I think she didn't mind it. She liked, again, I think because the way in which the structure of that family was built, which was on dysfunction and turmoil and, you know, fighting and whatever, by the sound of it, although I'm sure they had their good times. When the trouble started with the son, 23-year-old, complaining about his mother not giving him the right amount of attention, I mean, I said to her, "Are you sure you should be telling me that kind of thing? Like, are you trying to get rid of me?" And I look back, and maybe in a roundabout way she probably was. I'm not sure. But you can't contend with that kind of DNA. If there's a 23-year-old child that's fretting for its mother, you're best getting out of the way of that, because that's just going to bring turmoil, sadness. It's going to waste your time that you were starting to make arrangements with her around my arrangements, and she was submitting to it. It became intrusive. We'd be enjoying ourselves, and the next thing they'd be bashing on the door and demanding, and all infantile behaviour. You'll find the covert emotional incestual males brought up by single mothers and the daughters brought up by single fathers or mothers, the combinations vary, there'll be a serious underlying dysfunction that'll present itself, and it will attack the relationship of the new person. It will bide its time. It will sit dormant. I call it covert intentional sabotage. Covert intentional sabotage. It's there. It's waiting for the right moment to infiltrate its attack, and something eventually will happen where it can get its claws in, and you've got to make a decision at that point. In the last case, it was a matter of the son really going out of his mind. I've seen this before with younger boys, but not with an adult man fretting for his mother so badly that he became hostile and deliberately tried to find ways of defaming my character. And to be quite honest, I just laughed at it. I just rolled my eyes at it and laughed at it. And you're never going to get reason with these people. It was a narcissistic situation in the sense that if you're going after people deliberately to try and sabotage their character, that's narcissistic. I don't care who you are or where you're from. If you're trying to harm a person or defame a person with the person that they love, that's probably the highest level of narcissism that you can get outside of physical abuse, because love's important. It really is important. We weren't designed to swap and change. I keep saying this to people, but they don't seem to get it. I know the Christians get it, even though a lot of them don't apply it themselves, but we were never designed to swap and change. We were never designed to fucking, sorry for swearing, but it really makes me angry when I think about some of the wonderful, wonderful, absolutely glorious relationships that I've had. And I say that in a celebratory way because a lot of the people that I split up with, we never even had an argument. It was all circumstantial, relative to a third party. Remember one girl, father said to him, well, he's got 5 children, he's no good to you, but my children were independent, my children were taught boundaries, my children have never been a problem to me, they've only been a problem to themselves because I taught them independence. And unless there was something serious going on, I'd intervene, but other than that, they've got to get on with their lives. I don't believe in holding the hand of your children. Just doesn't work. In the long run, for some strange reason, it just doesn't work. I knew a lady there that had 2 sons. Like, these people are good people, for the most part. And she was like Alice out of the Brady Bunch. I couldn't believe it. She served these boys, these children of hers, young men, 23 and 27, impeccably. But she'd have a moments where she'd go, I need a break from these people. Well, you made it that way. It was your decision to be that way. But see, that's her guarantee. That's how covert emotional incest works. It gives you the guarantee. You're never going to be on your own. You've got the person that you're in the enmeshment with, or the people that you're in this enmeshment with, as a guarantee that you will never be on your own. So when you're a partner with one of these people and things start to go skew-if, and usually it's one of the children or something like this that starts to cause the trouble, it's really disappointing. I said to the last lady, I said, this is so disappointing. She couldn't even communicate at the end. She didn't know what day it was. I got out of there quick smart once, the red flags of lack of communication and effort and all the rest of it. They think you're just going to hang around. Well, sorry, no. Just because she had a maternal tilt the adult son started to play up and attack the relationship. I don't know how hard they were working on her behind the scenes, but I would say they were giving her a hell on earth. For different reasons, which I'd prefer not to say, different characteristical differences. All I'm going to say is I was sober and trying to bring the best version of myself, and these two guys were far from that. They were running on ego and guessing and very limited forms of intelligence. While smart, very, very smart, their intelligence levels were very, very minimum. And there was reasons for that as well, but I didn't mind them until they tried to attack me, and unfortunately, see, the attackers were the parents' plan B. If the relationship fails, I've got company, the company of my children. You've got to be aware of this. Nice old yacht there. You've got to be aware of how this works. Excuse me, sorry. Usually the attacker is the plan B, because what the attacking does, it stirs emotions, and women like a bit of a stir up. They'll say they want peace and they'll say they want this and that. Then they start not dealing with things, and then someone will do something stupid, like, you know, try and attack you or something, and they gravitate towards that because it's a bit of excitement. So what happened to the fact that you wanted peace? They didn't want peace at all. They want what they're used to, and that family was used to turmoil and upset and alcohol and drugs. Let's just say it. And the consequential roll-on effects of that were just absolutely disgusting, because they default back into that. For all I know, they're all happily going about their way in which they live, which is of no consequence to me, but it will be to them in the long run. And you've got to make decisions, because once you become attached to these single parents that have got their children as the backup and are deliberately making it that way, you have to size all this up. And this is why a lot of the advice now is don't get involved with single parents, because it's too catastrophic. You've got too much against you. Like, if me and the last lady had just been left alone, we were having a wonderful relationship. But the interferers, as in the case of a couple before it, just couldn't help themselves. And consequently, these people end up on their own. I've had 4 out of the last 5 want to come back. All of them ended up in terrible situations. Not one of them became successful. There was a woman without children that seemed to, she managed herself financially pretty well and got herself, she had an investment, she had a property, she made it. But she had her, again, even though she had no children, she had other things going on that were intolerable. So you get to the point as a man at my age, where you go, am I just being intolerable? Well, no, that's not true, because the relationship was going brilliantly before people interfered. And if the person that you're with is not going to stand up and say, hang on a sec, my relationship's more important than you lot, then you've got no chance. You will just be a convenience, because the valuable asset for that person is the child or the parent, because a lot of these children get in relationships too, and you'll notice they come running back to mummy, or they come running back to daddy. because they couldn't manage. Something's happened that was just in their face that mummy and daddy haven't taught them to deal with, and it's all become too much, and they've forfeited the relationship and run back to mummy and or daddy, or mummy and daddy. I mean, the level of fortitude and resilience corresponding with good character and moral and integrity has weakened so severely that people give in so easily because things are so far out of order. They have to retreat. They have to forfeit because they're not able to cope. They haven't been taught to cope. They've had too much their way. And this is where it's all going wrong now in our communities, because it's only a handful of people, and these are usually I'll tell you this, I had 14 apprentices over my career as a masonry contractor, and only one made it successfully, and he come from a family that's parents are still together to this day. Very nice people. And so the structure of the family relative to the original DNA, that's the people getting together and having children, if they can stay together, it's going to launch and propel those children into the world with a stronger emotional and spiritual fabric, because they've been shown how to stay. But when you've got these ones, and you've got to say to yourself, well, why is this person single? I mean, if somebody asks me why I'm single, I'll just say I chose to be because I ran into troubles in the outside interferences in the relationships I was involved in, and I wasn't prepared to have a 3 or 4 way relationship. I believe if your relationship is going well with 2 people in it, why bring in a 3rd or a 4th? I don't understand how, hang on, there's a train. Why these people allow 3rd and 4th parties to interfere directly or indirectly in their relationships. It just doesn't make sense to me, because that's where the trouble starts. If you're not working things out together, you may as well forget it there and then. That's my attitude, because something's wrong somewhere and it's just not going to work. So single parents, I'm a single parent, my children have all grown up, they're gone, long gone. Have to ask themselves, myself included, why am I on my own? And I think it comes down to a few factors. For me, my main one is tolerance. And I was speaking to a mentor of mine the other day, and I said I have to question my level of tolerance. Is my tolerance level reduced to the point where I just can't cope with interference? And my mentor, one of them, there is a couple, but one of them said, you don't have to tolerate dysfunction. I mean, at our age, when you get up into the 50s, there shouldn't be any dysfunction. You should have had it worked it out by then. But nah, a lot of people just won't. They won't do it. They refuse. So we have to stay awake. I think there's an awakening going on to some extent amongst men and women, where they're asking the question, why are we failing? Why isn't our relationship, why aren't our relationships sustainable? And it's a serious question, and it deserves a very honest answer. And from where I'm at, I'm going to say selfishness. There's always an element of selfishness and unresolved in a relationship breakdown, always, without fail. And these flaws don't surface, unfortunately, until you're well into your bonding with the person that you're trying to love. So the catastrophe is, and I've sat down with women and we've watched videos on relationships and we've spoken about everything and da 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 da. Maybe too far, maybe we went too far with it all, only to find ourselves apart. So maybe we went too far with it all. I don't know. Maybe you can try too hard. Maybe you can want too much. Maybe, there is a place where you just need to let go. But you can only let go so far too. There are people that want just relationships for convenience. But there also, I think, a relationship should be about an investment and return. And have the qualities, the Christian qualities that we were, taught to have. The proper Christian qualities, not the people that say they're Christians and they just bugger everything up. The proper Christian qualities that matter, that give meaning to life. Because a lot of the meaning of life now is being taken away through the new dysfunctional value system, which is basically do as thou wilt. You get tired of being with somebody and they say sorry all the time. They should know better. And we should know better. We shouldn't put ourselves in a situation where our behaviour brings us to the point where we're having to say to the person that we love, we're sorry. You should know better at our age. 50 years old, 50, 60 years old. If you're still having to say sorry to people because of your behaviour, then my God, that's got to be telling us something. We've missed something somewhere for all our effort. And it's sad, it's very, very sad. I had a woman that I married. Son moved in and interfered in the marriage. Couldn't help himself. Nice boy, beautiful woman. But I asked them, got so bad I had to ask them to leave. She wanted to come back. But the problem was, when she moved out with the son, because she had to find housing for the son, 3 months later she kicked him out herself. That's a true story. 3 months later she kicked him out herself. How do you comprehend that? She forfeited, she lost the marriage over the son, and then 3 months later kicked the son out herself. How can you comprehend that? How can you make sense out of that? I mean, if I wasn't a sober-minded man, that's the sort of thing that could cause you to commit suicide. Here's Warren with his dog. You got the dog, you got the dog. You got the dog, Was. You got the dog. Yeah, so 8 months later, she hit me up crying. She'd wiped out the estate, stole money out of that's what the Western governments allow them to take money off the husband, whether you've done wrong or right. Got all that claim through, bought herself a unit, and then rang up crying, wanting to come back. G'day, Captain. Good, thanks, mate. And that's troubling. I believe in forgiveness and all that sort of stuff. But when somebody wrecks things so badly and that wants to come back. Hey, Captain! Captain! There's a sunken tinny there. There's a sunken one of those just there. You know, I've seen a lot of destruction. And that one was based on the interference of the sun, laziness of the sun. He hadn't been, and his father was a brilliant man. I loved his father. I mean, the father left a mark on me. He was a very successful IT man from South Africa. He got left behind. And what you'll find is these women will develop a pattern of behaviour. Her pattern was to go into a relationship as soon as it all got too much, monkey branch, find somebody else, and abandon the relationship that she was in. Only this time she wanted to come back, but I wouldn't take her back. Not out of nastiness or cruelty, but out of self-preservation. But he was a brilliant man, and I couldn't comprehend why he didn't help his son to develop more. But he's gone on now to be in an electrician apprenticeship, and I wish him well for all good intention. I wish him well, despite the trouble and everything that was caused upon my estate and my children's inheritance because of their dysfunction. And this is what you've got to be careful of. So you get to a point in life where you meet people. I just met a lady who had quite a few children, but a couple of weeks into it, we started to find out there's AVOs against the mother's got AVOs out on the children. How does she expect somebody to be in a relationship with her? This is the stealth way in which these people are running around trying to get company. Beautiful woman, but just has never made the right decisions. I think she had a bit of obsessive compulsive disorder. So I hardly knew her, and she wouldn't give up. She tried to stay, and I'd said, no, this isn't going to be good for either of us. And morning. Beautiful woman, but just made wrong decisions. And this is what I've found with a lot of these single parents. Not all, but the ones that I've been involved with. And you will pay a high price, be it emotionally or out of your heart or spiritually or all of it, financially. How are you? Good, thanks. And yourself? So the damage that can be caused sometimes can be irreparable. A lot of the mental homes, the people in them are there as a result of failed love. They invested themselves so deeply into the relationship, were unable to sustain it or maintain it, only to break down. A lot of people break down, seriously break down, because of their idea of what genuine love is. They don't want to fail in love, want to lose in love. I don't think anybody does. But when it comes to single parents, you will not be able to, unless it's a very unique and particular person, my mother was one of these, we were forbidden to interfere in her relationships, and she made that very clear. She knew what it was like to be mucked around by men, and when she found a good one, if we stupid idiot children tried to, put our 2 bobs worth in, she very quickly cut us off. And so a lot of the single parents today aren't prepared to do that for the simple reason that their children become their guarantee. That's their guarantee that if the relationship fails, they're not going to end up on their own. So I hope in some way somebody listening to this can relate to what I'm saying, because in a relationship, I believe you need to be vulnerable. You need to be transparent. But that usually only works between 2 people. Once the privacy of the relationship is spread outside that safety net, then things fall apart very quickly, because you've allowed influences of different agendas and different motivations to come in. And my son was just in a relationship. The family of this girl hated him. They just hated him. They couldn't stand him. I was just in a relationship. The sons hated me. They couldn't stand me. Guess what? The sons won in the end, and that girl's family won in the end. But she's gone on now to be an alcoholic and into drugs, and I'm not sure where the lady I was with or what she's doing. And the thing is, you miss these people because you genuinely, set out to love them. But the dysfunction around their lives, unfortunately, interferes. Once it gets its claws in, can ruin your relationship. So you've got to be very, very careful who you engage yourself with, what the arrangements and agreements are with that, and what you're truly seeking out to accomplish with the person that you want to have a relationship with. Because some people don't care. Some people just want to have sex, make you a convenience, everybody go home till the next time. Well, that's not the sort of person I am. And I wouldn't advise that for anybody either. This is Dr. Jason W. Morrison, theologist, New South Wales, Australia. Bye for now.